Good afternoon, everyone. My name is James Jimmy Hills. As you know, I'm the host here of Java with Jimmy. We did not have a Java Cafe or a broadcast this morning. I'll share more about that later. I just want to shout out Swaggy T. For those of you that may remember, he was the young man that was diagnosed with cancer. And during the show where he was live, I saw that. Oh, sorry, I'm in the private chat. During that show, the commissioner, the Suffolk County Commissioner of Probation, invited Swaggy T to be co-commissioner for a day. And so we'll talk more about that later, but that's why we weren't here this morning. However, I got the text, I got the inquiries about Jimmy. Are you going to talk about what happened yesterday? Yes, I am. So for those of you that don't know, President Biden did drop out of the race and not shortly thereafter endorsed Kamala Harris, who is the current vice president, who is now the presumed Democratic nominee. And with that, not just my commentary today, but I have someone that is very familiar and a member and charter member of the Java family, very opinionated in a few spaces, a sports fan, finance person, an author, a preacher. But Heidi Ivey, a Black woman, is going to come in and give that perspective. And then we also have a friend and sister who is very involved in politics and very politically astute and ran for office herself and is a woman who ran for office. And also someone I would like to introduce you all to, might be familiar with him, but also Mr. Anthony Davis. Anyway, just joking, who is actually a Democratic National Convention delegate, and we'll share more how you can support him toward the end of the show. And so first and foremost, we did put this together in the last couple of hours. And so I want to thank all three of you for being here, and Heidi especially, because I said to a few folks that I reached out to that I would not have this conversation and not have the demographic of a Black woman be very intentionally represented. And so, Heidi, I would like to ask you first, please introduce yourself and say hello. And I would ask you to describe how you're feeling about yesterday up until now, any social media, anything, to describe how you're feeling in the context of yesterday in one word, and then we'll get your context in the second round.
So again, my name is Heidi. I'm everything that James said and an entrepreneur as well. It flashed across my phone from Twitter, or X as it's called, and I went, what? And I just kept on working, and I didn't see anything else. So the next place I go to is CNN.com, and it was the breaking news that President Biden had stepped down. I got to tell you, there was a moment of shock, and all of the emotions that went along with that, like, okay, so what's this going to look like? And started to count the number of days to the election and all of the stuff that has happened around the situation that happened, or the so-called assassination attempt. I shouldn't say that because somebody's child was killed. So forgive me for that. But it was draining.
It was draining.
Right? And it was very draining. Yeah.
And then in the context of the announcement and the endorsement right after, what word would you use? in reference to that?
One
Heidi.
word?
Yeah, one word.
One word. I don't know if I can.
Hopeful.
Hopeful.
Okay.
Mm.
Yeah, you probably got one of those little wonderful sound activated devices going on, but we hear you definitely. Jess, I'm going to come to you. As I believe the only person that ran for office on this call, you have a sort of different context of a lot of things that must be taken into consideration. Certainly, I'm not aware yet that you ran for president, but still sort of the same premise. And so, Jess, please introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about what you do, and then describe the past. I don't know if it's been exactly 24 hours yet, but you get the context. Describe the past 24 hours for you in one word as well.
Yeah, just over 24 hours, right? It's about 1:45 yesterday that I still call it a tweet. What is it? An X post? Who knows? Came out. But great to be with everyone. Like James said, I'm Jessie Mermel. I'm the founder and president of DeWitt Impact Group. We're a social impact consulting firm that works with unions, foundations, nonprofits. I like to joke on everything other than the lawyering and the lobbying, but we try to move the needle on making the world a little bit better place. I have a long background in progressive politics in Massachusetts. I was a select board member in Brookline for many years, ran the Mass Women's Political Caucus, was Deval Patrick's communications director, ran external affairs at Planned Parenthood, ran the Alliance for Business Leadership, the progressive business organization for some time, and in 2020 ran for Congress in the Massachusetts 4th Congressional District. And I think, like Heidi, when I saw that news yesterday, I was sort of stunned. I got a text from a good friend who works in politics in DC that was just filled with expletives. I know this is a family show, so I won't share the exact language.
We can after dark a little bit. It's after 9.
Okay. We'll come back for that exact play-by-play. And I was like, oh, what happened? What happened? And then, when you're doing the scramble of like, what are they referring to? And I pulled it up. And I was sort of stunned and didn't quite know what to do for a moment, especially because we had that lag between when President Biden announced he wasn't running again and when he announced he was supporting Vice President Harris. And so there was a lot of, what does this mean? And before I tell you my one word of what my reaction was, can I just say what a selfless patriot President Biden is? I mean, first of all, for everything he's accomplished these past 4 years, his incredible record of public service, but to be able to look at yourself in the mirror and say that the best thing I can do for the country that I love is to step aside is an act of bravery and selflessness and patriotism. And we all owe him an infinite debt of gratitude. So I want to say that out loud. Heidi stole my word. So I will say yes to hopeful, but I'll also say excited. I'm so excited about Kamala Harris. I'm so excited about what's possible for Democrats with hard work, with focus, with a lot of tough conversations that I'm sure we'll get to, James. But I'm really, really excited.
Thank you, Anthony. You are, and I'm just going to, where folks can tell when I'm on the road, because we usually have I have a background like that. Anthony is on the road doing some things. We joked in the before we went live, and Jess was like, you look like you're on vacation. But now you're not. What I'm going to ask you something a little bit different. You're away. What did you feel yesterday when you got the news, or what was your reaction?
So I was on a yacht party in New York City with one of my friends for their 30th birthday. And the news came in after a few cocktails, and
Did you have like boat. Text expletives?
Oh yeah, I got a few of those. The entire boat. Being the political friend is a burden in itself, and everyone literally coming over to me and saying, "What is happening?" And to Jesse's point, you have that lag, and so you have a really confused boat of people, and additionally a really confused group of people that are texting, DMing, questioning what is happening, what is next. And I would say my initial reaction was I was a bit confused. I was a
Yep.
bit, I mean, I'm just to take a, I think a little bit different tone, a bit upset that I think that Jesse's point rings very true about President Biden's selfless move. I wish that this had happened a bit earlier. I wish that just strategically we gave ourselves a little bit more runtime with um, ideally Vice President Harris as our nominee. As a delegate, I've gotten a lot of interesting text messages from fellow delegates and also folks who are just very interested in the process. Who I don't know if you saw when you said earlier that Vice President Harris is going to presumably be our nominee. There's a lot of thoughts about whether that is actually the case, and I, as a delegate, as a voter, as an engaged person in general, I think I have a lot more questions than answers right now. But I'm really in tune with kind of figuring those things out and learning those within community and through conversations like these ones. I think that a lot of folks, I think the vision for where we are going and our leadership within our, you know, I will say I'm a Democratic delegate, so within our party, it's starting to coalesce around Vice President Harris, which is really exciting. And so, this morning, I think I woke up with a little bit more excitement after seeing the progression of yesterday. And even, seeing the news of 44,000 Black women being on a Zoom call last night, raising over $1.5 million on that call. I thought about back to the power of organizing and that we really do have a chance, even with Vice President Harris as our nominee.
Definitely agreed there. And a few things, Heidi, I'm going to come back to you, and Jess sort of alluded to it. Anthony did, and I did when I said presumably. We did see in the news as recently as yesterday another Joe who defected and went and registered as an independent is now like looking. And so early on, I think before he endorsed and when there was conversations about what this would look like, it was like, okay, they did like, I'm going to say just, it may be wrong, but like a straw poll, a very informal poll. And they were looking at a few other people that would get ready to run. Most of them have now come out, including the Clintons, who were very early on, they've endorsed. And so there is this thing about presumable, but Heidi, let me ask you in the context of our awareness that populations and demographic, well, I don't want to put words in your mouth. Do you have any concerns about getting Kamala over the line? Your awareness of, stats and numbers around the last election. Do you have any concerns, or what are your concerns generally about ensuring that we get the Democrat into the White House?
It's funny you asked me that because, and I'm gonna say something that's gonna come from my preacher background. I woke up this morning and I felt that Amos spirit. And if you know anything about the prophet Amos, Amos was minding his own business, tending his sheep and whatever other farm animals he had. But because of the condition of the nation, he was compelled to say something and do something. So with that said, I am concerned. I'm concerned with the not just the politics of Vice President Harris becoming the nominee, but I'm concerned about the religious right. And I'm concerned because we've hung our hat on things like abortion, but we haven't looked at the totality of what we're saying and what we want from this country, right? We all watched that, the Republican nominee become a convicted felon. We know that he is abusive to women. And so we've hung our hat on a platform and not looked at the totality of the situation. And nobody's perfect, right? Nobody is perfect, but we have to decide what side of history we want to be on. And so I guess that's where this Amos spirit is coming from. I'm probably the oldest person in this room right now. And so this means a whole lot more for me, right? Because I've got young nieces and nephews and great nieces and nephews, and history, we have to be on the right side of history. So I think that's where my concern is coming from.
Absolutely. One of the other pieces of history, and Jess, I'm going to come to you because Jess did join us again. This was last minute, but she does have to leave at 3:30. And I'm going to go ahead and kind of address, and you said we were going to talk about it, the elephant in the room. One of the biggest with what Heidi just said, and let's be fair, may have not known, if I'm right, 2016 Roe versus Wade was, I want to say 22. When was it reversed?
Roe fell just over a year ago. So
23. So I'll be fair. In 16, there was a particular demographic of women that voted Trump in. And that demographic, and I find myself often saying, I look at Anthony in different shows, that demographic looks like you and I. And this, I think, is the first time I'm saying on air that demographic looked like you. Let's talk, because just the thing that is interesting is black, white. I don't, though Roe didn't happen then, I think there may have been enough awareness of this right wing and potential and indicate. Go ahead. You know where I'm going. Yeah. What this is a real concern. And what is it that you would say? I put up a post yesterday about allyship and all that other stuff. Ma'am, you got 7 minutes. What is it that you will say about you talk about organizing and whatnot, but let's have an ally demographic conversation.
Yeah, it is the most real thing. I think that we as a Democratic coalition need to talk about, because, to quote Taylor Swift, it's me, I'm the problem, it's me, right? I wrote this down because I wanted to get it right. In 2016, 47% of white women voted for Republicans nationally. In 2018, in the midterms, 48%. In 2020, 53%. In 2022, 55%. Not okay. And yes, James, you're right that Roe only fell last year. I'm a proud alum of Planned Parenthood League of Massachusetts, having worked there and run external affairs there. And I'm still very much involved in the abortion rights community. We've known for a long, long time that folks on the other side were coming for our rights to control our bodies, our rights to access the healthcare that we need for a host of reasons. And yet, have consistently voted in those numbers for Republicans. But James, abortion is very much not the only, as much as it will be a driving factor this fall, and that's something else we can and should talk about, but not the only reason that white women are voting against their self-interests when showing up to vote for Republicans. Let's think about 2016. That election happened weeks after we all saw that Access Hollywood video, where Donald Trump talked about where he should be allowed to grab women by. I'm like, what? And still showed up, and 47% voted for that man.
And progressing every election since. Sorry.
Yes. And getting worse with each passing year. Not to mention the fact that their policies, Kamala Harris, when she ran for president, proposed 6 months of paid family and medical leave for new parents. Let's talk about actual policies. To Heidi's point, what is our agenda? What are we fighting for? Let's talk about the actual policies that the Democrats support and the Republicans have been fighting against for years. Let's talk about prescription drug prices that impact women and our families so deeply. And for all of these reasons, we're voting against our own self-interest. And let's name it, it is because of institutionalized racism that white women have benefited from for generations. And whether or not those women who vote and check that red box when they go into the ballot box are willing to say that out loud, so many of us have benefited from those systems, knowingly or unknowingly, it doesn't matter, for so long. And these are really hard conversations that, yes, all of us are going to have, but it's mainly those of us white women who support Kamala Harris, who support the Democratic ticket. Because let's be clear, we don't just need Vice President Harris to win. We need the whole ticket to win, up and down. You know, Anthony, I see you nodding your head. And so we're going to have those conversations. And James, one of the reasons we were texting this morning is, you know, I was in the gym this morning, doing my thing, getting dressed after my workout. And this woman near me, a white suburban woman, was talking about how her daughter works in election law, et cetera, et cetera. And she says, oh, I'm really not a Kamala Harris fan. And that woman. And and I said, she doesn't have to be your favorite. She doesn't have to have been your choice in a primary, but, you know, I'm really excited about her. And clearly we need to unify and, you know, we have to make sure we defeat Donald Trump, all the things that you say. And she said, she just doesn't have any executive experience. And I just get this feeling she's incompetent, and all of these things that aren't rooted in any fact, right? They're rooted in vibes, and we know where those vibes come from. So to the extent that you can get into this when you're, you know, like putting on your deodorant and your towel in the locker room, I start saying, well, you know, let's think about it, right? Joe Biden had no executive experience when he came into the White House. He'd been a legislator for literally decades. He was by definition not an executive. And when Barack Obama got elected, he'd been in the United States Senate for a minute and a half, right? And he got in. So, you know, we give men, and in the case of Joe Biden and literally every other president, white men, the free pass to grow into a role, to assume that they can step into and fill those shoes. And, you know, this is one conversation with one person, but I do think it's reflective, and I'm seeing it online, and it's something that we know the Republicans will take advantage of. And so it's my responsibility, and I mean that as me, a human, but also me, a category, to go out there and talk peer to peer with other white women and call out the BS when we see it. We aren't going to win everybody over. Some people are really rooted in those beliefs, or might have, you know, genuinely held policy beliefs that that reflect the other side. But we know that white women are voting against their own self-interest when they show up and vote for Republicans. And, you know, for any white woman who claims to be an ally of anything between now and November, step up, get uncomfortable, do it.
Simple as that. And just because I respect that you came last minute, I at least want to give you 1 minute to get a sip of water and breathe before you be on time and jump to your next 3:30. But we're going
I'm so sorry to have to run
in the next few months. But thank you so much for your expertise, and thank you for being willing to be an ally and speak to that. Thank you.
Thanks for having me. I'm sorry to jump. Good to see everyone.
See you.
And so, Anthony, with
can I say something to what she just said?
Come on.
I totally agree with her. And the thing that came to my mind was intersectional bias. And why do I say that? I say it because women of color, Black women specifically, deal with exactly what was just said. We don't look the part, that we are perceived to not have the proper background, when none of it is true, right? So we show up at the table as the most educated, the fastest growing population in this country, to start businesses that, oh, by the way, impact the economy of our states, our cities, our neighborhoods. We put our people to work, but we show up and all people see are two things, intersectional, that we're a Black woman and so that we're Black and that we're a woman, and don't think about the fact that, now let's take this back to Vice President Kamala Harris. What do you mean she doesn't have an executive presence? She was in the United States Senate, a district attorney. She's been, what are we talking about, right? And so that's the kind of thing that she's dealing with. that intersectional bias.
There is a lot of that. And Anthony, I want to give it to you. And Heidi, if you're on a time limit, let me know, because toward the last like 15, 20 minutes, we're gonna have a black man conversation with Anthony in reference to our brothers voting and whatnot. But Anthony, before we transition to you and I want you to give some feedback based on what Jess and Heidi said. And you said that your word, if I remember right, you said your word was confused. We have to be okay. Here's my question: as a delegate, as someone that knows the power of strategy and organizing, how do you see, or what do you see that the DNC needs to do to address what Heidi said and what Jess said as well?
Well, the first thing that we can do is for our leadership to rally behind Kamala Harris.
First and foremost, yep.
which we are starting to see. You called out the Clintons right before we started this call. Nancy Pelosi endorsed Vice President Harris, and we've seen locally, Mayor Wu endorsed Congresswoman Presley, Senator Warren, Senator Markey, and so we're seeing our leadership start to coalesce around Vice President Harris. I think that there are still some major names that are outstanding.
Can I say just outstanding? I want to propose something to you. Everybody's looking, and I seen a headline come up today that President Barack Obama but endorsed. So we know that he is pragmatic. We know that he is smart. I believe that the former president, the good one, is working behind the scenes, because his intentionality, I believe, is to help absorb or deter any notion that this was a coronation. There's some either Republicans or some within the Democratic Party that want and we should have a democratic process, and the people on the floor should vote. But I think that because that's one I know everybody's waiting for, but I just thought about that today. I think he's waiting to be that final, so it's never said the whole establishment endorsed. You got the major, because right now he is probably the most popular next to her. When you said outstanding, I just thought about the other O.
Well, I've gotten a lot of questions about his call, essentially calling for, some folks feel as though he's calling for an open convention. As a delegate, I've gotten texts from folks who are like, you pledged to vote for President Biden and Vice President Harris, that ticket. And so now that is no longer the ticket, is that still are you still planning to vote for Vice President Harris? And it's like those little seeds that people are sowing of contention, that are divisive ultimately. One of the things that I've been saying, as over the last week, we kind of saw that this was coming. We saw that this, was on the way, that President Biden was going to step down, was that there was not a clear, I don't think that if you ask 10 Democrats, everyone wouldn't say Vice President Harris was their second choice. And so to that point, when you ask what does the DNC need to do with our 3 months that we have until Election Day, is that they have to organize like hell. And I'm sorry, but you said it's after 9 o'clock. So
you did, yep, we good.
We're going to have to, what we saw last night, 44,000 Black women on a call. We have a Black man for Kamala Harris. I know you're going to share that, the flyer. That's a call happening tonight, 8 p.m. Every Black man who's in this room, in the chat, please make sure that you sign up. We're going to share the information for that. And we need to start to organize around Vice President Harris. In my opinion, the convention happens, and I'm just pulling up the exact dates. I'll be there August 19th through the 22nd. That is literally a month from today. And so we don't have another month to lose deciding who our nominee is going to be. We just do not practically have the time. And so we need to, the DNC party, the leadership, and the delegates need to all get behind Vice President Harris. If we, the reason why I would say, I think my first word was confused, but also a bit scared, is that my, to Ivy's point, to Jesse's point before she hopped off, is that folks are going to do everything that they can um, to to take away Vice President Harris' validation, to point at her record. I already see, also being the youngest person in the room, I'm in group chats with friends where people are sharing memes and talking about her record as an attorney general and as a district attorney, and she locked up black men and all these things that are divisive ultimately. To Jesse's point, that woman who she was talking to in the locker room probably was guns to the wall, guns blazing, voting for Joe Biden. And now that Vice President Harris is at the top of the ticket, now she's finding some reason where there were plenty of reasons that you shouldn't have been voting for Joe Biden. I mean, if you want to poke holes at someone's candidacy, you can do that to anyone. But we're going to see a lot more of that happen around Vice President Harris. It's because she's a black woman. At the end of the day, she's in America as a black woman running for the most powerful position in this country. And so we're going to see everything done. I'm afraid for her, honestly. I pray I'm gonna be praying for that woman every single night. Like, she will be a part of my prayers, because the vitriol, the things that she's going to experience over the next few months is going to be insane, inhumane, and disrespectful.
Heidi, Anthony and I are going to have a conversation about men. Just before this call, I had a phone call with the city official, high-ranking city official, that is also after 5, very knowledgeable about campaigns and things like that. And surprisingly, one of the things that he said to me, and we're sort of having a public conversation, but I'm just going to ask Heidi to maybe speak to it a little bit. Presumption was, Anthony, and we're going to still have this conversation because we still need to focus on this group. Presumption was that black men, because of some of the things that you named about in her role as a DA, in her role as an attorney general, by nature of what the system does, of course, she's going to, in those roles, you got to understand I'm not going to go there, Heidi, but one of the other populations that I was surprised to hear on social media and some concerns is Kamala's getting a lot of pushback from folks that look like her. And I don't know if you observed that, but before we transition just to talking to the men, I want to give you a few moments to just, what is it that you would say to black women that, are very concerned, you locked up my uncle, I heard about what you did, generally valid issues, but sort of another question, but the big, I just don't think people are getting the bigger picture.
So I've been seeing it all day long
Okay.
on social media. I've been seeing where other black women, and people have a right, it's your choice, your vote. Listen, I'm not telling you what to do, but it's very interesting to me to watch other black women tear down another black woman. It hurts. It hurts. If you don't vote for her, fine, but don't tear her down, because she's already going to experience enough of that from people that don't look like us. You can rally behind her and push her and speak well of her, or don't say anything at all. Right? But we often say this, is how come black folks can't ever just unite? And a lot of us that say stuff like that are often those of us that when it's time to unite, we're not doing that. We're being divisive and all of these other things. And it hurts. And I think black women, we are the most disrespected group of people in this country. We don't need to do that to ourselves. We just do not. And if I can say this, I've seen it a lot today with black men. And when she was nominated as vice president, I watched our Black men go completely off concerning her. And that bothers me because my first question to my brothers is, at what point will you stand up and support a Black woman? Help me. I'm not saying everybody, but on the whole, and I've seen some pastors here in our city do that. And it makes me wonder, if you do that like that, how do you treat your wife? Because the two things to me can't coexist. Listen, I told you I feel like Amos today, right? So I love y'all and we need you. I'm gonna stop right there, James.
Yes, ma'am. I know you'll be in a whole different place.
I can't.
We're going to have Heidi come back. Heidi, do me a favor. Text me either your website or something, so when Anthony and I finish, before we finish, we can let folks know how to follow you and reach you. But thank you for last minute notice for coming in, and I'll be in touch. Anthony, Heidi raises a very valid point. You know, I had so all right. I made it. I'll shut up after this. Kamala was a district attorney. She was a district attorney before this whole difference the DA makes and understanding role of the DA. Then she ascended into the attorney general. In those roles, and especially as AG, because Andrea says this, you are the top law enforcement officer in that state. We understand that the criminal legal system, not justice, the criminal legal system, by design, engages the number one population is Black men. And so by virtue of a pool of a system, when that's
she's enforcing a law that she had no responsibility in creating. And as a part of the system, she did her job. Unfortunately, the system has been created to condemn, to lock up, to dehumanize Black men. And unfortunately, she caught herself as a part of that system, but she did her job. She was doing her job within that system. And it's out of her way to create anything. Yeah.
To somebody, literally, we're speaking in real time. Brother Real Thomas Braxton Jr. on Instagram commented and said, it's difficult when her heart is not with Black men. One, generally, we don't know people's heart. God is the only one that knows the condition of the heart. Two, I hope that what we just talked about, Thomas, and if I think I know who this is, I know where you're coming from. Again, now, not negating. Go ahead.
No, I'm sorry, but I think if I think what I think Thomas is saying, based on some of the conversation I'm having with Black men, is also her husband. That's where her heart is with Black men. Yep.
So that is, I was going to bring that up toward the end. Let's talk about the other elephant in the room. And so, you know, that it is a real issue. And I've at times have seen, you know, in before I understood love is love, and it sometimes isn't subject to race or whatever. I've side-eyed some maybe interracial couples, you know, there's a kid, teens or whatever, and just wonder, well, damn, you know, there wasn't a good, you know, brother or wasn't a good sister. Okay, that's real. However, again, you go back to the notion of love is love, and you can, I don't, what was you going to say? Because you're married. So you can you can speak a little bit different. Go ahead, sir.
No, I you know, again, it's what we were just talking about. You know, at the end of the day, it's just looking for something. You know, when when you're in a relationship and you really want to get out the relationship, but you don't want to be the person to break up the relationship. So you're just trying to find the smallest thing to bring up as a reason to end the relationship. Or
you left the sock on the corner of the bed.
You know, cause an argument that hopefully will cause a reaction that will end this relationship. So that's what we're seeing right now. 60 years ago, 1964, Malcolm X said the most disrespected person in America is a black woman. And 60 years later, that still rings true. I'm seeing black women in your chat right now in the comments on Facebook that are reiterating just this same thought, that are echoing these thoughts of people are going to look for and find a reason to discredit Vice President Harris, and whether it be her husband, whether it be her record as an AG. My question to folks is, are these questions or are these reasons, one, are these reasons for you not to vote for her? Two, if it's not, do we need to have this conversation publicly? And that's honestly, Jimmy, taking a little step back, sorry, just from pivoting from Vice President Harris, what has happened over the last, I would say, month or so since the debate has been criminal by leadership within the Democratic Party? I just want to say that off top, because what we did over the last month fighting out in the open about whether or not President Biden should step down, did nothing but weaken our party.
Yeah.
Did nothing but weaken the chances of whoever the person was that we propped it up, of them winning. And so now we're just seeing that transfer over to folks talking about Vice President Harris's eligibility openly. Instead of, being in spaces, potentially having conversations like these where we're talking about the pros and cons, but we're ultimately, I think everybody on this call is supporting Vice President Harris for president. And so we can talk about these things, but ultimately we're talking amongst friends, we're talking amongst family, we're talking in a safe space. To Heidi's point, Black women being on Twitter discrediting Vice President Harris is going to be used
against her.
Yes, the Republicans are going to use that. They don't even, at that point, they don't even need to attack her. They can just say, look at what Black women are saying. And so we can't give them it's already going to be a tough enough fight. We can't give them ammo.
I definitely agree. And it to hear, that's a strong statement as being a DNC member. And so my heart, first of all, is my brother. I was like, I hope I don't mess with him. Two, what goes on we were always taught, what goes on in the house stays in the house. Don't air your dirty laundry. And I'll be honest, and I said this either on the show or I said to Miguel the other day, this country is going to have a conversation post this election about ageism. The other thing that we are. The other thing that I thought about, Anthony, and then I want to share some information about you and Heidi, and brother Jeff is on from Hella Black Trivia. I would love to hear his thoughts just about where things are. We understand and we know, and it's proven from when Obama went in with black hair to now he's about just as more salt, maybe a little bit of pepper. The presidency ages you. Mm-hmm. Anthony, I wonder that if Joe Biden didn't become president, if 10 to 12 years from now, similar to Jimmy Carter, Jill would have issued a statement and say, hey, Joe is taking a back seat due to, they were speculating Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, or whatever the expediting of what comes with the aging of the presidency. I honestly believe that what we're seeing in him, that's a part of it. Most times the president ages you, and they say that it's more physical. We also haven't had a president at that age. And so I'm honestly thinking that the cognitive thing, the onset of whatever the appearance of his cognitive abilities or whatever, probably wouldn't have happened in these last few months if he wasn't president. It probably would have onset 10, 12, 20 years down the line. So those are just, some thoughts I had. And I do think with
go ahead. That goes back to my point about just why I was upset yesterday, because
facts.
I feel like we have 4 years to you just laid that out perfectly. Like, we know that the presidency doesn't age you like a regular person ages in 4 years. It just doesn't. And so Joe was already, in 2020, sorry, President Biden in 2020 was already, wasn't that always sharp on the debate stage. He had moments, he had good moments, but he also had a lot of this similar kind of gabs and like, just mix ups, mixing people's names up, saying the wrong thing. And so that was who he was 4 years ago. And so, to your point, you knew that this man was going to age exponentially over these next 4 years. Why did we not plan for this moment? Why did it take 4 years for him to step aside and say, part of it is him. And I think that, at the end of the day, I don't put as much responsibility on him as I hear a lot of people saying, like, why didn't he step down earlier? Why did it take all of this? Because at the end of the day, the party was prompting him up. They wanted him to still run. It wasn't until the debate that we saw this large shift in folks no longer wanting him to be the nominee.
And Daddy said something to me the other day about something unrelated, but like he was the desired and the king and all that other stuff until he wasn't. You know what I mean? And that's just a whole another conversation. I know you're on the road. It is 3:52. One thing I did want to say, everyone, Anthony is still on, and we'll promote Heidi's in a minute, but Anthony is a delegate for the Democratic National Convention. And so I don't do this often, but I'm going to ask you if you would consider making a donation to support Anthony to getting out to the DNC. That is his Cash App right there, $. What is Cash App's not case sensitive, is it?
I'm not sure.
Okay. 1-8 is, and if it is, and you really want to give, then you'll figure it out. But $3, $5, $10. The ask is $3.50, $35. Or if you're apt and able to, you can feel free to send Anthony a $3,500 Cash App, and everything is all set. But Anthony is going out to Chicago, which is a whole nother conversation in itself. So yeah, y'all send Anthony to the Cash App. But Anthony is going out to represent. Are you mass delegation?
Yeah, so the 7th Congressional District, Congresswoman Presley's district, I'll be heading up with some of the delegates from there.
Awesome. So Anthony is going out to represent the Mass 7th, of which many of us were in Boston, parts of Somerville, and a little bit of Winthrop. Cambridge. No, not Winthrop. Cambridge, that's it.
And a little bit of Milton.
See, he's representing us. And so if you would consider, go ahead and send that brother a Cash App there. Also, you heard this brother, he is a strategist. Disclaimer, this is the CEO of the management company that handles everything for me, the Davis System. So please feel free to reach out to him. You can go to their new website, thedavissystem.com. thedavissystem.com, just revamped and some things on it. Shout out to the whole team there. And so, Anthony, thank you. It's last minute. You're on the road. I definitely appreciate it. And also, don't forget, Anthony is actually hosting a conversation this coming Wednesday, I believe at 7 p.m.
Yes.
On Instagram. He's doing an Instagram live, and you're just going to give your commentary, or you having guests, or?
So I'm going to have a few folks, friends from kind of that I've, cross paths with, organizing with around the country over the last few years. So just wanted to get a lot of different perspectives. My plan is, and the hope is to, have a lot of folks on who, feel, similar to our conversation. We see similar, perspectives and the end goal, but how we get there, and each of us are having different conversations. So we'll have some people from different walks of life that I think will bring different perspectives onto the call.
Absolutely. And Asia, thank you.
Hopping on and off.
Okay, that is similar to the calling. So Asia, thank you so much for that. Anthony, please give E my best. And also the last thing before Anthony goes, just so I make sure I do it, we wanted to let you know that tonight at 8 p.m., 44,000 Black women got on a call last night to support supporting our Right now, Vice President Harris, but we hope and pray soon to be our President Harris. And so there is a call tonight for men. And Anthony, I thought I didn't sync up, so I can't pull it from the computer. If you go to my Twitter page at Java with Jimmy, I'll post it on Facebook. There is a call tonight. All you have to do is scan the QR code and it'll get you some information for you to be a part of that call. I'm going to share some commentary away from Anthony because he's a delegate and I don't want him on screen with me when I'm about to say. I ain't going to be that bad because then I don't want the tech staff to talk about, ooh, no. But no, seriously, plan on brothers coming in that call tonight at 8 p.m. Also, don't forget that you can donate to Anthony going out to the DNC as a delegate by going to Cash App and put $1Great8 and send $3.50, $5, $8.50, $10, or $35, or $3,500. Please consider supporting this brother as he goes out and represents the Mass Seventh here, or rather in Chicago for the DNC. Did I miss anything, Anthony? We good?
No, just thank you for creating the space. I know we're going to need to do more of these conversations. And then also, I do want to just give a quick shout out to, and just I want to make sure I call her by name. I'm probably going to mess up her name, but Aparna Bawa is the COO at Zoom. And she actually played a major role in, Zoom doesn't really have capacity to do 44,000 people on a call. And so, her working closely with some Black women who are organizing, who have been organizing for decades. They got together with the COO of Zoom to actually be able to pull off that call last night. And so, Black women, they get things done. And so I don't get why we.
Jesus, this country has never had a Black woman at its leadership. I mean, do you know where we could potentially be a few years from now? You want something fixed and you want something done right, call a Black woman. This is why I'm getting you off my screen. My leg is shaking. Anthony, thank you so much. Give E my best and safe travels.
Okay, thank you, brother.
So folks, if you just tuned in, I see that Anissa just tuned in. Anissa, we didn't clear this with you. We just sort of set it up over text, which I'm not supposed to be doing, but it was with Anthony, so hopefully I can get over. Shout out to Anissa, who was in the building. It usually sets these things up for me, but I just had to today, especially not having the show this morning. And so what you missed if you're just joining was I had Heidi Ivy, who was a Black woman, Jess Mermo, who is the DeWitt Agency, who is a white woman. And then we had Anthony, who's a Black man like me. We had a real conversation. Go back and watch it from the beginning. Heidi spoke to her excitement and also some of her concerns for the presumed nominee Harris. And also Jess kept it 100 about allyship as white women, because you do understand that over the last 4 elections, the percentage of white women that continued to vote for somebody and a system and a platform that goes against you all having the autonomy to make decisions about your body baffles me. The other thing that we talked about, I'm going to say a little bit because I'm not one of them, is Black women coalescing around Kamala Harris. And if you have something to say, and I'm one of the most opinionated and have posted, said, and went live and did a lot of things. But we mature, we evolve, and we grow. Last thing I'll say is something else that baffles me is I don't really think for the people that are supporting this right-wing Donald Trump MAGA, what you don't realize and are ignorant to is that a lot of the very freedom that you enjoy now to be able to say F Biden, F the Democrats and whatnot is because you have free speech. Some of you who are of migrant or immigrant history in this country that right now, if Trump gets into office, you know what? Let me focus on the good that can come out of supporting Kamala Harris. You will have someone that understands the plight of families, and as Jess said, propose 6 months family medical leave from when you have your children so you can be home with them and establish a bond with your child. You also have someone who used to prosecute and not a convicted felon that represented the law. And I know there's a lot that comes there. You do have a Black woman, yes, with Asian descent, and I believe some Southeast Asian descent, I believe. However, and I get the notion of lesser than two evils and all of that, but Kamala Harris right now is someone that would be more willing to work with the most marginalized communities toward equity. Last thing I'll say on a, it's not even negative, it's information and education. I understand that we are a capitalist country. I understand that Black and brown people, women in the most marginalized communities don't have equity when it comes to wealth. We understand the variations across the country and in this nation about the gap in the wealth gap. What some people seem to be, their support for Trump is predicated upon is the almighty dollar. Okay? So a few things I need you to understand. A lot of what you all perceive, and a lot of you made it, let's keep it 100, off the extra $2,400 a month in unemployment, off the PPP, and some other stuff. That was not necessarily a what's the word I'm looking for? It wasn't a conscious, hey, let's help those that are in those systems. It was by nature of the pandemic. It was the ARPA and all that other stuff. And so a lot of what you all perceive that may have made your hustle a little bit easier wasn't a decision that this man made willingly to make sure that Black and brown people and women come up economically. Also, when you look at the real numbers and the stats, though there's inflation, this is a inherited thing coming off post. Everybody talked about it during the pandemic. So people are attempting to blame the current administration. They're doing their best to handle it. And again, is Uncle Joe and were the Democrats and all the Democrats perfect? No. But I will tell you this. Somebody just typed Project 2025. That thing is a manifesto for not only taking America back, but putting America in a negative. Do you know that they're proposing things like a family vote? Women, meaning that the only vote that will be able to be represented is from, and with them dissolving gay marriage, will come from a heterosexual family male that will go out and vote for the family. Listen, educate yourself. Listen, good Crispy Haynes, got to see him the other days in the building, famous guy there. Kamala, baby. That's what it is. All day, every day, from now until the election. And locally, we need to ensure that we vote down ballot for Democrats. We're going to have a lot more of these shows coming up very, very soon. I'm biased. Yes, I am. I'm biased toward equity. I'm biased toward helping the most marginalized communities come up. I'm biased toward women having a right to, I personally, as James, I don't agree with abortion. I don't. It's just my religious background. I just don't. However, more importantly for me, I believe a woman has every single has every right to make a choice for her body. We can walk and chew gum at the same time. So I'm getting ready to get off of here. Donna, hi, Janky. As we argue to organize on a national level, the same needs to be. Donna, I just said it. Locally. And that's a whole nother convo. Definitely need to get into Project 25. We're going to get into that real soon. I'll see if I can get a couple of folks, maybe a lawyer, some policy folks like Anthony and others, and we'll break down Project 2025. That's it for me, folks. Hopefully we made up for not being on this morning. Tomorrow morning, hold on, I'm about to tell y'all now. Tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. And I also have to, for those of you that were in earlier and got to hear Heidi Ivy, I wanted to let you know that you can go to her website. It is hyperlinked here in the comments, and that is patriceandassociates.com, Boston 02125. You can hyperlink right there to find out more about Heidi and her business. Tomorrow morning at 9 a.m., we have coming into the Java Cafe. Hold on for 1 second. I'm getting everything up now. Where is it? Tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. It's coming. Anissa, you killing these flyers. Sorry. I just seen it. Tomorrow morning at 9 a.m., we are speaking with Marlon Moore, who is empowering through consciousness and advocacy. So Marlon Moore will be with us tomorrow. Please plan to come in. And also on Wednesday, we have Kareem King, Building Power on Mass and Cass. He did a whole project on a public health perspective to Mass and Cass. And then also on Thursday morning, we have Daniel Von Keller, who is going to speak with us about redefining success through connection and mental well-being. And so this is BIPOC or of color male mental health month, as well as acknowledgement of the American Disabilities Act month as well. And so that's why we're talking about that. And next Wednesday, we have Dr. Kevin Simone from the city of Boston. Last thing before we go, the reason I wasn't on this morning is because a few months ago, as some of you may remember, I had a young man by the name of Tyreek, or Swaggy T as he's called. He was on the show talking and giving his testimony about overcoming cancer. And of course, the video didn't sync on the computer, so I can't show you the video. But I just want to let folks know that legislation was signed today by this young man that really puts in and increases the victim witness advocates within the Suffolk County's Department of Probation. And so, Swaggy T, we just wanted to celebrate you. Thank you for your leadership and all you're doing. Thank you. Also, we had the Chief Justice of the trial court. We had the court administrator come in and speak and meet with him, and we'll put the pictures up later. So I just wanted to shout them out and let you know why we weren't here this morning, because we're out here just trying to have impact. All right, I'm off of here. We'll see you guys tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. Have a great day, everybody, and we'll talk to you soon. Peace.